I think in the history of Hypixel SkyBlock, I'm probably like one of the first people to ever physically injure himself playing the game. Like, okay, mental injuries, let's get real here. Everyone faces it. When you play Hypixel Skyblock, a mental injury is bound to happen. You're gonna eventually go through like one of the worst grinds imaginable, and then it won't be fun. There won't be any enjoyment. All the life, all the enjoyment you get out of Skyblock will be sucked away from you because actually, in the reality, like half of Skyblock is just grinding in order to try and start having fun, and then once you like start having fun, you immediately revert back to this is not actually that fun, and I want to go back. But for me, what ended up happening was I ended up just injuring myself while I was having fun. I was having a good time, and then I ended up injuring myself. That's not true. I was not actually having a good time. I'm about to tell a horror story where I was not having a good time. Anyways, to cut to the chase, this horror story begins where all horror story begins. I messed that up. I don't. I was supposed to add a plural s in the second big. Whatever, man. You know what I was saying. Anyways, what was going on is that we didn't have our hats at the time. This takes place in 2021 in Hypixel Skyblock. Our hats had just been nerfed. Tarantula helmet and the Crown of Greed. They both just got nerfed. I'm not really sure why they got nerfed. Actually, I do know why. They were pretty strong, and it was pretty bad because every Hypixel Skyblock player's dream is just to maximize damage, get the highest damage output so you can kill things more efficiently, and then you'll get sad after you kill those things because you just get tired of it at some point. But basically, they nerfed that. They made it a little more difficult, and it was like, man, that sucks. I really wish there was a better helmet right now. Then the Revenant Horde Tier 5 update came out, and it would introduce the Revenant Horde Tier 5, but also the Warden helmet, which was a brand new helmet that was better than both the Tarantula helmet and the Crown of Greed. Hey, huge problem that just got solved. It was a great day. We were about to get our hats back. No, we're not. Just kidding. That's not how that works. Because, of course, this was locked behind an RNG drop. And it was not just any RNG drop. No, it's an RNG incarnate drop called the Warden Heart, which is a completely new rarity of RNG drops, by the way. The previous, like, highest tier was RNG Jesus. They didn't have to do this, all right? They could have, like, knocked it down a level and made it, like, a little easier to get. No, they were like, no, we're just going to make this, like, way more difficult. Why? Why did you do that? It wasn't fun. And look what it did to me. It injured me. My hand injuries are now still present in my day-to-day life. Actually, well, it's entirely my fault that this happened, and also this isn't actually entirely the reason this happened, but that's like those are like two different videos altogether. Anyways, with the Revenant Horror update, they actually also added a new system, the RNG meter, which would essentially, it's a pity system. It's a new pity system. Why am I explaining a pity system? You know what a pity system is. But what I will explain is that it was the first iteration of it. Keep in mind, there's actually the RNG system is still like present in the game. Our RNG pity system is still present in the game, but it's like the reworked version. This was the original version, which was worse in comparison to the one we have today. And by that, I mean the way the system worked is that essentially you just killed the bosses and it would fill up a meter, and it would fill that meter up all the way until you reach 100%. And once you reach 100%, you would be guaranteed an RNG drop. But the key thing is that if you got an RNG drop before filling up that meter, your meter just resets. So all that like progress you made on a meter, it will just completely go away. It wouldn't matter. So that's a key thing you should know about this, because this is going to become very relevant soon. Anyways, another big thing about this update is that the Revenant Horde Tier 5 was actually surprisingly very difficult. Like, nowadays I could probably like walk in there naked, butt naked, no armor, like probably like a wooden sword, and I can just hit the thing and I'll probably die. I would probably win. Like the Revenant Horde Tier 5 nowadays is not hard at all to beat, and there's probably like some dude watching this video thinking like, man, the Revenant Horde Tier 5 is pretty hard to beat. No, it's not. All right, it's not. You're just weak. I'm sorry. You have to get better at the game. But anyways, back then, that was not the case. It was actually a very difficult thing. Our strength was not nearly as like strong as we were compared to nowadays, and it was actually a very difficult boss fight, so much so that it required a lot of jitter clicking in order to like win, which I guess technically that's like every single boss in Hypixel Skyblock, but for this one in particular, it required a lot of jitter clicking, because for me, I had max attack speed, and that was like the way you maximize your DPS, by clicking a lot. You maximized it by jitter clicking. And so throughout the boss fight, I would just be jitter clicking the boss the entire time to maximize my damage. But it was like pretty hard, and I wasn't dealing a lot of damage, at least compared to today. At the time, I was actually dealing like a pretty average amount of damage to the boss, but it was still taking like a long time. Like the boss in general, I I think it took like a minute to defeat the boss, like the Revenant Horde tier 5. The boss that like nowadays I think you could probably just one shot if you tried like at least a little bit. And like and additionally, it'll take like a minute to spawn in the boss. And so here's the key thing. Yeah, I would be jitter clicking non-stop because I would have to jitter click in order to spawn in the boss, and then when the boss fight actually came in, you know, when I had to throw hands, I would still have to jitter click there too. I would non-stop jitter click. And I guess a big issue that I should also mention is that I love gambling, all right? I hate to admit it. I like gambling. I did make a video called I Got Jumped by Gambling Addicts, which is what happened. I got jumped by gambling addicts. They extorted me out of cash. And in the comments, I did mention that you should not gamble. You guys, do as I say, not what I do, all right? I like gambling, but you shouldn't. But here's the problem. I would go in and I would have the dream of obtaining the Warden Heart, being one of the first players to obtain the Warden Heart. And this would just not be the case, because what would end up happening is that I thought, oh, you know, if I can drop the Warden Heart from just getting the RNG meter to 100%, and then I'll be like guaranteed like at least like a Scythe Blade or something, and then like the Warden Heart. No, huge mistake, because there's actually like 2 other items that you can also drop that are just not nearly as useful. In fact, one of them is just completely useless. That being the Snake Rune and the Beheaded Horde. A Beheaded Horde is like an item that is used to craft like the little like... Actually, I'm like being a skyblock fraud here. I don't remember what it's called. It's used to craft the thing. You know, editing me, you got this. You can post it, all right? I believe in you. And then the Snake Rune was a cosmetic for like your chest plate or shoes or something. And these 2 drops, they're not useful. A lot of people have them. They don't do anything, but they're considered RNG drops. And remember earlier, you know, little flashback, I said that RNG drops would reset the RNG meter. And you know, I'm assuming you're not a child, so you can put together a picture. If you got a Snake Rune or a Beheaded Horde, 2 items that are very not valuable, you would just reset your meter. You'd go from like, for me, I went from like constantly like 70 to like 80% of the meter failed just to reset back to 0, because I ended up dropping a Beheaded Horde and a Snake Rune. And here's the thing, those 2 items are significantly like more common than like usual RNG drops. They're not actually like as rare as like a Scythe Blade, or as rare as what was it, like the Shard of the Shredded, which was one of the new items. I was actually one of like the first people to craft the Axe of the Shredded. To be clear, I grind this a lot. You'll hear it. You'll hear about the amount of time I ended up grinding in total. But these items were just not at all comparable to just the Beheaded Horde and Snake Rune. Those 2 items not nearly as useful, and you got them way more frequently. And so what would end up happening is that I just kept getting my meter reset over and over and over again, and it was the most miserable experience ever. I remember I actually got so upset that I ended up going to the forums and making like a petition post to try and get rid of the Snake Rune from the RNG meter, because it was just so annoying. It was like I was dropping a cosmetic that if you weren't even ranked, you couldn't use this. Like this is not useful at all, because it's runes. So you can't use runes if you're not ranked. I think, I don't know. Post editing me, fact check that. But it was like I wanted to get rid of it, because I was like, dude, it was resetting my meter so often, and it was one of the most frustrating things imaginable. And here's the most frustrating thing about this entire thing. I failed. I never got the Warden Heart. In fact, I grinded for 6 hours. The day the update released, it was 6 hours of non-stop jitter clicking, which is unsurprisingly what caused my hand injury, by the way. My hand, like, at like hour 3, my hand was becoming like really sore. It was like my body like telling me signals like, hey, you should stop. Like you should really stop. It's starting to hurt, and I was just like completely ignoring it. I just kept going, and then by the end of like this 6-hour grind, I didn't get it. I failed to get it. I didn't get the Warden Heart, and so I was like, all right, you know, my hand hurts. I'm just gonna go to sleep now. And then I woke up, and I just did the same exact thing. I went in, I just did a 6-hour grind again, and you know what happened again? I didn't get it. I just did not get it. I never got it. The Warden Heart is just something I never got. And here's the thing, okay, not only were my hands hurting a lot, but I was grinding a lot. This was not like a, you know, when you hear like skyblock and like 6-hour grind, it doesn't sound like that much time. It was, and I can prove it right now, because I went from going unranked in the Revenant Horror leaderboard, or well, the Zombie Slayer leaderboard, to being top 100, like over the course of 2 days. That's how much I played the game, is that I ended up going like like, okay, I need to paint a better picture here. Zombie Slayer leaderboard was a very competitive leaderboard because it was good for leveling up pets and combat XP. Well, I guess the two are related, but you get the point. It was very good for those two things. It was a very competitive leaderboard as a result. So for me, a completely unranked player, someone who's never been on the leaderboard at all, to just show up and top 100 from just grinding this long is insane. That's like a ludicrous thing to do. And my hands hurt afterwards. I didn't even get what I wanted. I failed. I'm not ranked in the leaderboard anymore. To be clear, I'm definitely not. I'm not even gonna bother to fact check that one. But it was just still like, it was miserable. I did not enjoy this. This was not fun, and this would be the start of my hand injuries. Keep in mind, the start. This would actually, this entire video is just for me to go in and say that this actually wasn't the entire reason behind my hand injuries, and that what would end up following suit was Enderman Slayer and Blaze Slayer. Those two would escalate it. Enderman Slayer especially. That was actually the actual thing that started this all. And so that's a different video for a different day, though. Anyways, that's kind of it. So bye bye.